question to people. Both of the speakers went at this. Is it as bad as you say it is?
Oh, it's worse.
Yes.
As far as what I talked about, I've only given you a very small sliver of what is happening in Iraq. And we have no data out of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is probably the same, but we don't hear anything out of it simply because the institutions there are so much more crushed that they can't communicate. So I think as far as the stuff I was talking about in terms of like human suffering and human health situations, I think we don't know how bad it is. It's quite bad, and it's probably more larger than what I can imagine. I think probably Afghanistan is just as bad, if not worse. We don't know because there's no way to get in. I tried to reach some of the Afghan researchers or doctors from Iran because I'm from Iran. And so I was actually in a hospital, and I managed to find an Afghan residence there. And I talked to her, and she was supposed to like help me get into Afghanistan and collect some samples and stuff. Never happened. I think it's because things are so devastated there. It's just not possible to do any research there. So I think it's much worse, as far as I'm concerned.
Can I speak? Okay. First of all, I believe all this that you described is by design. It's intentional. When I think about what I've been hearing about the past few years, and even more prevalent today, is that they talk about this one world government, and they're looking for just 1 billion people to be walking the planet. Now, presently, we have over 6 billion people that's walked this planet today. So that means they're going to eliminate 5 billion people. Okay, and that means that this billion people that they're going to leave on the planet, throughout the whole planet, is going to be servicing the 1%. Okay, we spoke about United States versus other countries. I have to say, because I'm a veteran also, that we're bullies. Okay, the United States didn't come to be the powerhouse of the world by being a nice guy. Like, I can't come to your house and say, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, we talk about our president of the United States today. Obama is a political distraction, period. Okay, he was put out there intentionally for the minorities, for us to look, oh, yeah, we got it, but he's all a part of the whole plan himself. All right? They have a picture many years ago when he was a younger man standing between Bill Clinton and George Bush. I've seen the picture a couple times. Okay, I believe in the revolution, but I spoke about it briefly with Mr. Everest, and I believe that we should have an economic revolution. You see, I believe that if we hit them with taking the finances away from them, or part of it, and we take control of our own economic basis, there's a lot that we can do. Now, I have an organization, I'm the CEO of a community development program, and we advocate that, which I shared with him, and our objectives is to empower communities and individuals through entrepreneurship and education, to change consciousness. We've got to change the consciousness because people walk around sleeping. They're not aware of what's going on. And it's intentional, okay, so people won't be paying attention to what's going on in the world. All this is designed. So we have to wake up and realize what they're doing to us. And we have to make changes. We do have the power. In this country I'm talking about, I'm not talking about Iraq right now, but we do have the power to make changes. But we continue to, we continue to spend our monies to empower those who's exploiting us. Intentionally. You got these billionaires who are making all this ridiculous money every year, but yet they take millions of those dollars and put it in the political arena to suppress us. So what do you have today? The only thing that you can think about, basically, is how you're going to pay your rent and how you're going to put food on your table. That's ridiculous. They're stealing your life away from you. You're not growing. You're not moving forward in life. And that's what we come here for. But we need to make changes with all that. I'm sorry, I'm running my mouth a little bit too much.
Well, no, actually, you're speaking to it a little bit, but it's kind of on the table here. What are we up against? You know, it was posed. What we're up against a system? Are we up? You know, I've heard it said in the some panel I was in today that greedy corporations are the main reason that we have NSA spying. Well, I didn't really agree with that, but you know, Stephanie, you got your hand up, and somebody else too.
I have a different kind of a question, but the natural
resources.
And you talked about what happens to the water, but what happens? What is the situation of agriculture while, whatever form of natural growth they have? Are there more extinctions in Iraq and Afghanistan? I mean, the extinction rate in the whole planet is just, it's growing geometrically of the extinction of species, but what's happening there? Are there other, has the whole balance of what, species that exist in Iraq, Afghanistan, what's happened with that?
Well, I know a little bit about that, because that's really not my field, but the little that I know is that after Saddam Hussein was overthrown by the United States, there were certain, he had closed certain waterways, and so he had dried up certain wetlands in the south of Iraq. And so after he was overthrown, those things were removed, those blockages of water. And so certain areas of southern Iraq that were dried up were rehydrated, in effect, and a lot of birds and things came back. I read a short report about that. Now, I can't believe that those areas are, in terms of toxicology of it, they're clean and the animals are, in good health, because you don't throw like 20,000 tons of radioactive stuff somewhere and then not affect the life that is happening there. But I haven't seen anything that directly talks about that. So I would suspect that if you did a comprehensive sampling of areas where the United States and other forces, NATO, not NATO, but the British forces bombed or used ammunition and stuff, I would suspect if you sample them and if you look at them, you will find all kinds of toxic stuff, because we are seeing the effects on the population. I mean, even though there hasn't been any environmental monitoring in Iraq, there's no way to get in and do the sampling and look at them. There is no funding to run. Basically, the work that we've done, it's been out of the generosity of a place like Madre, for example. They paid some money to do these. So in order to do a comprehensive study to see exactly where is how much polluted, you need to have scientists who plan the study, who go in there, collect the samples, bring it out, analyze it, to find out exactly where is how bad, like you said. So we don't have any of that. In fact, this whole idea of birth defects and stuff, there is extreme resistance inside the university communities in the United States, extremely resistant to it. After all the publicity that this issue has gotten, after all the doctors in Iraq who keep screaming about it, saying, we can't handle it, there's way too much of this going on, help us. Finally, there was a report by the World Health Organization, which we forced them to release it. They were postponing its release, Finally, when they released it, they said, well, we did a study, and it looks like the birth defect rate mimics that of European countries. That is a total nonsense. And the study that they released was so full of flaws that several people wrote, including myself, we wrote reviews of it, we published it, there was huge noise about it, we can't trust this study, it has to be redone, somebody else, some unbiased force has to do it. But none of that is gaining any momentum. So what I've been trying to do, I've been trying to organize a tour of Iraqi doctors to come to the United States and tour US campuses. Dr. Samira Al-Ani, she's a pediatrician from Fallujah, and she has been really all over the Western media talking about her patients. And so I'm trying to bring her and Dr. Al-Sabak, who is the man you saw in the little clip, we've had invitations from really large universities, very prominent schools of public health, including Columbia, including Harvard, including Princeton, these big places. They've actually invited us to go and share with them our exact data. What do they see in the hospitals every day? What does my toxicology research show? And we're hoping that once they do come and once they have this tour of universities, like Berkeley, for example, University of San Francisco State, I think, all of these places, if we can actually physically go there and show them our research slides, and then tell them this is what's happening and we need to develop collaborations with universities in the United States and conduct studies and do clinical work there to see what it is that we're facing and how we can make any impact on the health of it. So basically that's what we've been trying to do because universities here in the United States are very resistant to it. I must have talked to 20, 30 researchers who simply say, well, you know, it's a very interesting thing, but, you know, I'm really busy. I don't want to, no.
Well, yeah, they're scared. And
They're scared, they don't want to put themselves out there.
I know, but he's leaving. He's
Yeah.
gonna go.
Okay, Larry wanted to speak to your question and then we'll go.
Yes.
Yeah, just real quickly. A lot of people feel that there's a conscious plan and these people control everything. And I mean, you've raised other things, no, it's important, you know. And on one hand, it makes total sense because A, they do have plans, they have big plans, and B, they lie about everything they do. However, fundamentally, and this is where the strategy for revolution comes in, and I'd highly recommend this new talk. I don't know what it's going to be published or put online or whatever, called Where We Are in the Revolution, that the RCP recently gave in a number of cities. But it makes the point is that we have to be scientific. We're looking at this giant wall of oppression, but there are cracks in this wall. There are cracks in this wall, and in the most fundamental sense, it's what Marx said. They've conjured up forces from the netherworld over which they don't have control.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to list a few. China and the Pacific, Ukraine, they lost the war in Iraq. They're leaving Afghanistan without accomplishing what they want. Mass incarceration is a huge open contradiction and open sore. You know, they're trying to roll back fundamental rights of women that were established for very volatile situation, but I'll leave it right there. And then how do we, as conscious revolutionaries, interact with those and hasten the development of a revolutionary crisis, accumulate forces for revolution while influencing millions of people? You know, and there's, so anyhow, but...
Okay. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you being here, bro.
Yeah, this is great. I'm not out here by myself.
There you go.
Ian.
So I have two things. One, I appreciate the whole idea behind this panel, which is putting together two concerns that don't often talk to each other, which is a concern about imperialist war or capitalist war, whatever you want to call it, war in general, the whole military-industrial complex, and the impact on the environment. Because most people, when they think about the environment, I should recycle, I should do these individual things, and it doesn't occur to them, oh, you know, if I take on the military-industrial complex in an effective way, that will also, you know, vastly reduce this. And of course, it's not just the military-industrial complex, it's also other corporations that are independent of, to some extent, but also participate in that. And so paying attention to this larger structure is really important. Then, you know, that moves on to the question of, you know, a larger structural approach, which would be a revolutionary approach. And then my question is this: it's, you know, we live in a very pluralistic, ideologically pluralistic society, with to some extent one kind of, you know, subterranean ideology running through everything, and structuring everything. But you know, at least in our own heads, we all feel like we have different ideologies, different viewpoints, different religions, whatever. How is this going to work when trying to coordinate any kind of revolutionary activity? Because you've got Bob Avakian, he's one particular guy with one particular theory. I haven't read his book. But of course, there are a lot of people who are saying revolution come from very, very different perspectives. How do you make this pluralism work for you rather than trying to, you know, pose top-down Avakian's theory or somebody else's theory on everybody else? How can that energy be tapped into effectively so there can be, you know, real change that we'll get now?
Let's take your question.
One thing I find missing in this conference among too many of us is a serious study of capitalism. You know, I mean, capitalism, a lot of people just don't understand it in a deep relatively scientific way. And I really think if we all studied it, we will wind up pretty much in the same place. But there's not a lot of people who, in my opinion, even leftists, we're not studying capitalism in a scientific way, how it works, how it really works, not, shit we learned in civics classes in school, but, because I think that's part of the problem is there's a certain, I think someone like you have a lot of information about capitalism, in my view, and I just feel like the rest of us need to bone up and catch up, and I think then a lot of common path becomes common because we've done the research on because it's figure-outable. It's not easy, but it's figure-outable, and I think we need to do it, and I think the answers, when we do it, a lot of stuff gets answered. It's what can you do, what can't you do in capitalism? What kind of world can you have? And anyway, so that's my 2 cents.
Should I speak to those? She had her hand up also. I don't know.
I mean, I'm just sort of...
Just bring a few things in. Go ahead.
Oh, just to kind of go along with what you said and the gentleman that was sitting over here that left, when you were referring to the Normal Heart movie and the sense of emergency, and I literally feel like I've been in a state of emergency like my whole life, literally, because I could just, I just feel stuff, and I don't understand how people just don't feel it, and it's not just that I felt it, but when I would express it, the response from everyone would just be like, just sort of this skimming over, or, it's not so bad or whatever, and which would just increase my sense of emergency, And so, like, it was just a clear, we live in such a health deficiency, a mental health deficiency and a lack of just fitness. And, like, I've always felt depressed because nobody ever listened to me my entire life. And for the, I finally, we're going to have a panel. I'm going to attempt, I've been trying to bridge health and the economy and capitalism. And so we're having a panel tomorrow morning, and I'm just going to talk about yoga practice and just fitness, and how people, they don't understand that we're supposed to be living so much more optimally healthy than people accept. They accept this horrible going to work and paying your bills way of life, and I can't even imagine how people can just accept that. I can't. Like, how do you accept that kind of a life? I have no idea. Like, how do you not want to, like, how do you not feel that spirit inside that just wants to be free, like that wants to travel and do stuff? I mean, I know people my whole life, they have no passports, they never leave the United States, they just don't educate themselves, and it's like they're just okay with that, and I'm completely at a loss sometimes with people. Huh? I mean, I don't get it, and sometimes, like, I'm grateful that I kind of grew up in more oppression, because it sort of was like the rubber band that got pulled back to sort of like project me. Like, if you didn't get that oppression pulled back, you're not going to have the projection forward. And, maybe it's the frog in the boiling water. Like, I feel like other people, they got it kind of maybe more slowly and gradually than I got it. I didn't get it slowly and gradually. I got it like really, it was like hitting you in the face. It was so obvious. And I mean, I don't know. I just...
Yeah, well, you can wait for a second. Just really, really excellent points that people are making, number one. Just on your point of, I totally agree with you about the need to do the work to understand the reality. I just think that's very important in terms of political economy, what you're saying. And I couldn't agree more that people bandy about capitalism. Oh, of course I'm against capitalism. I mean, the word revolution was thrown around a half a dozen times last night, and all in the wrong way and not not what it's about, you know. Fine, you put it on the table, let's talk about it, but, you know. So, and I want to recommend the work of Raymond Lotta, and I don't know if you get a regular subscription to Revolution newspaper. I would highly encourage it, and one article in particular is called On the Driving Force of Anarchy by Lotta, which I think is from last November. You'll see it online. All this is online at RevCom. And it's an article anybody in here could read and get something out of. The newspaper makes a real point to try to make, not, you know, break things down, but don't water things down. You know, people are capable of understanding these things. You know, but how do we break them down? Hang on, just give me a sec here. So, but I'm totally in agreement with you, because if you don't understand this driving force of anarchy, you don't understand what's really the wellspring of the compulsion. That's what I was trying to get at. I didn't spell out all the political economy of it, but the compulsion. I mean, look, just think. Which one of us growing up would have thought General Motors would be on its knees, you know, and bankrupt? I mean, General Motors, the biggest company in the world, it seemed like it was going to go on forever. Oops, no it wasn't, you know. And think of how fast this is happening now. So that's one thing. The second thing on what you're saying, this is a really important point for the whole communist revolution that you're making, is that there's diverse ideology, so how does that function? A, to come together in a revolution, which you kind of have to have a common goal, and B, and I'll add this, in a different society, you know, and this new synthesis I'm talking about is a way to deal with that in a much more comprehensive and better way than has been dealt with in socialist societies in the past. In other words, understanding that even after you have a revolution, there's still going to be ideological diversity. Everybody is not going to be a Marxist, for example. You know, once after you have, I'm going to talk about revolution in 1 second, they're not going to be a Marxist, you know? And so, for example, it's different. Look, I'm not subscribing to all the lies about totalitarianism in Russia and China. I'm not trying to address all that here, but I just want to make clear I'm not, I think these were liberating revolutions, but we have to do better, and the thing you're pointing to is one way we have to do better. And one of the things of this new sense is no official ideology. Yes, if you're in the Communist Party, you have an ideology, but there's no official ideology society-wide. If you look at the Constitution for a new socialist republic, much wider Bill of Rights, including not just the right, but encouragement for people to say, I don't like socialism. Now, they can't go around assassinating people and doing things like that, but, you know, you don't have to agree with the direction that society's going in. You need that dissent, because if you don't have the dissent, you're not going to get at the truth. Your point, and if you don't get at the truth, you don't have a prayer of changing the reality you're confronting. You need to understand it. It's like a scientific community, like the people you have to have arguments about how to understand things, you know. But in terms of the revolution, and I think this will get to her point, is look, this ideological diversity point is one reason we're not in a revolutionary crisis. We're not at a moment when you would say, okay, revolution's on the agenda as an active thing. Precisely because you don't have millions of people who are won over to this basic concept, you know. So that's one dimension of this, but the other dimension of this is for everybody seeking to change the world, you need to go by what is true, not by what people think. I mean, 500 years ago, everybody thought Did they think the earth was flat then? I think they did. I don't know. They thought some shit that was completely wrong. It didn't change. It didn't matter. They were all wrong. You know, so if Bob Avakian is what he's saying is true, then people need to take it up. However many people, you know, are advocating for it at any given moment. The other thing I just want to say quickly, and I'm going to speak to what you said. If you could just give me a minute, people are asking really deep questions, and I'm trying to give answers that are serious about what they're bringing up. But the other thing I think is a core part of the RCP strategy is fight the power, transform the people for revolution. In other words, there are ways which we need to be able to unite. How many people want to protect the right of women to choose? I hope there are tens and tens of millions of those people. I want to unite with each and every one of them to fight to defend that right. And as we are having that struggle together, let's argue about why is the ruling class doing this? How do you liberate women? You know, what's the source of this? What's the solution to this? Same thing about mass incarceration. And look, and in terms of what you are raising, I just want to say, A, I am so glad you're passionate. You know, B, passionate people need to get together and be passionate together on a common. I know you're so passionate. You want to see.
But I just want to, you know, I mean, you just said it before about dissent. I mean, it's normal. Like, the problem with this world is nobody knows what healthy is. I mean, no one literally knows what it is. Like, we've adjusted ourselves so badly to the deterioration that we think that it's normal, and they don't even understand that it's your right to dissent. That's your right. You know, I mean, I have this, I call it emotional range of motion. Like, we have bodies, right? Like, my range of motion from my shoulder is like this. I mean, we have emotional range of motion also. So, I mean, if I couldn't lift my shoulder, I would think that there's something wrong with that. So if you have no emotional range of motion, there's something wrong with that too. And this society doesn't even recognize that there's something wrong with that when you don't have emotional range of motion. Anger was always considered bad when I was growing up. Anger. You could not have your anger. You don't get taught how to manage that energy. You should be being taught how to manage that energy. Conflict resolution. You know, like this is all parts of ourselves. Like, that's why I got into fitness. Like really helped me learn a lot about this world. I learned more about the economy and everything. Now everyone is saying what I was saying my whole life, and I learned it all through like health and fitness and mental fitness and things like that. And sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought now.
It's okay.
But
We'll give you a chance again.
okay.
Mozhgan.
Oh, anger. That's where I was going.
Well, I think what she's saying is, she's basically, you know, I think even in academia, you are never expected to say, well, if something is not working or it's bad. You're always expected to say, oh, it's great, it's fantastic, it's, you know, things are going so well, you know. Lots of things aren't going well at all, but it's very, very hard to break that way of expressing things. At most, they will say, you know, there are some things that have to be refigured out. I agree with her that showing anger and passion for something is really looked down on. They want to see monotonous people who are very, very controlled and very sort of trimmed and just, you know, they express very limited range of motion and basically say that everything is working well and it's making progress, and so that, I think that is the language of the society.
Especially for women.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
women.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
One of our slogans, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution.